Salam and good day. Some Islamophobes love to draw cartoons and comic pictures of Prophet Muhammad in order to provoke Muslims. Well, we may not have his picture, but we do have his own words and teachings. And through his words and teachings, I will try to draw a mental picture of Prophet Muhammad for you in some very short videos, each less than 1 minute long. So if you really want to know what he looked like, please watch these videos and share them if you want. Salam. He had a beautiful face. He was usually smiling, but even if not smiling or laughing, his face was always calm and serene. He told people that whenever they smile at others, they are rewarded by God, just as if they have donated money to the poor or spent in charity. That was Prophet Muhammad. He was always truthful before becoming a prophet. His pagan tribe called him the trustworthy and the truthful, and among his important teachings as a prophet is that a true believer can never be a liar. That was Prophet Muhammad. He respected all people, men and women, whites and blacks, Arabs, free men and slaves. Whenever anyone addressed him, he would turn his whole body towards them, not just his head, giving them his full attention. And he never talked to people wholly. That was Prophet Muhammad. Whenever he walked into a place where people were sitting and someone was talking, he would never interrupt the speaker, and whenever someone talked to him, he would wait until the speaker had finished all what he wanted to say. Then he would speak. He even used to ask the speaker, "Have you finished?" And if he said yes, he would then start speaking, and this behavior made people in turn respect him and listen to him. That was Prophet Muhammad. His walk was the walk of a serious man, yet was at the same time humble. When he walked, he would make quick progress without seeming exhausted, as if he was going downhill. Rather like people on those moving sidewalks in airports. They move fast, but they don't seem to be exhausting themselves. His walk was that of a person with a goal, not that of someone wandering around aimlessly. 900:00:31 for 63 00:00:33 760. That was Prophet Muhammad. He used to wash a lot, at least once a day, and he loved to wear pleasant scents. Those who didn't know him would think he sold scents and perfumes because of his constant association with pleasant scents. Before he arrived somewhere, his companions would know that he had arrived before he appeared in front of them because of the pleasant whiff of musk that always preceded him. That was Prophet Muhammad. People may think that he used to wear a particular outfit or uniform, but on the contrary, he wore everything men wore at his time as long as it was modest. He wore the mne juba, he wore the turban, he wore the hummer, which is the otra or the cloth put on the head, he wore the palin, which is the hat he wore. Roman outfits and Coptic outfits he wore. Trousers. He only avoided anything grand or lavish and anything that could make worship hard for him. In fact, he once cut off the sleeves of a garment because they were too tight to be rolled up for Udo, or the ablution, which is performed before the prayers. That was Prophet Muhammad. He was extremely generous. A man expressed admiration for a garment that he was wearing and asked if he could have it, so he took it off immediately and gave it to him, so we can say that he would literally give you the shirt off his back as long as he found something to give. He would give it, and the poor used to describe his generosity by saying that he was like the stormy wind that trains and showers. That was perfect. He was extremely humble. Once a man from another tribe entered his tent to speak to him, and he was shaking because of his excitement at being in the immediate presence of a great leader. So the prophet told him, "Take it easy. I am not a king. I am just the son of a woman from the tribe of Quraysh who used to eat old rye bread." And a man once entered upon him and tried to kiss his hand, so he said, "Don't treat me like one of those kings." That was Prophet Muhammad. His wife said that he used to clean the house, mend his clothes, fix his shoes, and even milk the goat for his family. He used to ask permission from his wife to stand the night in adoration for God. He used to gather his wives every evening in the house of the one he would be spending the night with, and they would all have a light meal together. Then he would tell them jokes and riddles until they all laughed and had a good time. They once asked him, "Who of us is the dearest to your heart?" He said, "Let me tell you tomorrow." Then in the evening, he went to each one of them in her house and gave her a coin. Next day, when they asked him, "Who of us is dearest to your heart?" he said, "The one who has the coin." So they were all happy. That was Prophet Muhammad. He taught Muslims to trim their mustaches, to remove excess body hair, to remove armpit hair, to shave pubic hair, to clip their nails, to comb their hair, and groom their beards, and to brush their teeth, and of course to cleanse themselves after using the toilet. That was Prophet Muhammad. He was never angry for personal reasons or personal insults. He was only angry when a crime or a sin was committed, yet he never allowed anger to make him lose his temper. He was very calm most of the time. Once he sent his young assistant Enes on an errand, but on his way young and I saw some children playing, so he joined them and forgot about his mission. And the Prophet saw him, but he did not punish him or embarrass him by reprimanding him in front of them. He just called him with an endearing nickname and said, "Oh, nice, go do what I told you to do." And I said, I served the Prophet for more than 10 years, and throughout that time, he never blamed me or told me, "Why did you do this?" or "Why did you do that?" That was Prophet Muhammad. Whenever he sneezed, he would cover his face and not sneeze loudly. Then he would thank God for sneezing. He was never seen yawning, and he taught people to cover their mouth when they yawned and to try to resist yawning and not to yawn loudly, probably because yawning spreads the feeling of laziness. That was perfect. He was never angry for personal reasons or personal insults. He was only angry when a crime or a sin was committed. Yet he never allowed anger to make him lose his temper. He was very calm most of the time. Once, he sent his young assistant Anas on an errand. But on his way, young Anas saw some children playing. So he joined them and forgot about his mission. And the Prophet saw him, but he did not punish him or embarrass him by reprimanding him in front of them. He just called him with an endearing nickname and said, "Onis, go do what I told you to do." Anas said, "I served the Prophet for more than 10 years. And throughout that time, he never blamed me or told me, 'Why did you do this?' or 'Why did you do that?'" That was Prophet Muhammad. He was brilliant, extremely clever, always aware of whatever is happening around him. He was uniquely objective, very energetic, well organized, and he had an extraordinary memory. He always planned ahead of time. He knew what had to be done today and what could be postponed till tomorrow. Throughout history, there have been people who were outstanding in politics, and some in economy, and some in military skills, and some in management. He was all of those combined. That was Prophet Muhammad. He was sentimental, and he was never embarrassed to show his emotions. He once stood in front of his mother's grave and cried silently nearly 55 years after her death and 20 years after becoming a prophet and a head of state. When his companions saw him crying, they said, "What's that?" "A prophet of Allah," he said. "There is a mercy which God places in the heart of whoever he wills." That was Prophet Muhammad. He had 7 children, only one of them was alive when he died, which means that he lost 6 children during his lifetime. 3 of them were young brides who had recently gotten married and became wives. But when you read his biography, you don't feel that this was a sad man who had lost 6 children, all because of his contentment with whatever God chose to do to him and his acceptance of God's will. That was perfect Muhammad. He shed tears when his baby Ibrahim died. And as he buried him, he said, "The heart is indeed saddened, and the eye overflows with tears, and we are surely saddened for your departure, O Ibrahim." When one of the young companions saw that, he started screaming and wailing out of compassion. But the Prophet told him, "Crying silently is a sign of mercy, but screaming is from Satan." So even during the hardest moments, he was a teacher and a role model. A solar eclipse happened on that day when his son died. So people said, "The sun has eclipsed for the death of Ibrahim." But he said, "Neither the sun nor the moon eclipses for the death of anyone." So even during the hardest times, he never forgot his role as a mentor. That was Prophet Muhammad. He loved children, and children loved him. He used to shake hands with the children as he walked in the street, and whenever he came back from a journey, the children of the city of Medina would run towards him and jump on him in merriment, and he would let them do so, then asked his companions to help him by carrying some of the children. He would put his 2 grandsons on his back and thread on his knees, pretending he was a camel, and he would tell them, "What an excellent camel you have." That was Prophet Muhammad. Once he went to visit the family of his servant Anas and found his little brother Abu Romeo sitting in the corner with a frown on his face, so he asked, What's wrong with a barometer, they told him that his bird had just died, so the prophet said with the child in order to cheer him up and told him all oh my what happened to the new hire. The word bird in Arabic is nur, not noise, but the prophet wanted him to laugh, so he had said it in a way that rhymed with the boy's name. Oh, I know very in fact about my cap, narrating the story until he died in an old age. That was Prophet Muhammad. Once he went to the market to buy some goods, so one of his companions tried to help him carry them, but he said the owner of the goods is the one responsible for carrying them, and he walked with the goods in his hands while his companion walked next to him, empty-handed, and one slave invited him for a meal. So he accepted the invitation of the slave and went to his house and ate with him, and once a feeble-minded woman came up to him and kept rambling on, and took him here and there in the city of Medina, and he kept listening patiently to her without any interruption in order not to hurt her feelings. That was Prophet Muhammad. When he spoke to his companions, he would never be seated while his companions to the router, and he was never seen stretching his legs while sitting with his companions. When a messenger of a king came to the city of Medina with a letter to the prophet, he did not find a palace to go to and deliver the message. When he asked about the whereabouts of the prophet, he was told that he was in a meeting with his companions, so he went to see them. When he reached, he couldn't tell which of them was the prophet, because he sat in the midst of his companions just like the rest of them. He wore like them, he ate like them, he lived in a house like their houses. He was one of them. That was Prophet Muhammad. One slide on a journey, he and his companions wanted to slaughter a goat for food. So one of them said, I will slaughter it. And one said, I will skin it. And one said, I will cook it. And the prophet said, I will collect the wood. He chose the hardest task because collecting enough wood to cook a goat could take a lot of time and effort. That was Prophet Muhammad. He once wrestled with a Guru Kana who was an unbeatable wrestler, yet he beaten a burro kinda said no way. Again, so the prophet wrestled with him again and beat him again. McKenna begged for one more chance, so the prophet beat him for the third time. Americana said, I swear by God that you cannot be accepted. Prophet, he wasn't just a scholar sitting in the mosque giving lessons about Islam. Rather, he lived Islam with his companions. That's why they are not called his students or even disciples. They were his companions, literally. Companions. That was Prophet Muhammad. During one of the long travels, the weather was very hot, and the prophet and his companions were in short of rights. So it was decided that every 3 people would share a ride, such that one would ride for a while and the other 2 would walk, then they would switch, and so on. The 2 companions sharing with him his ride wanted to give up their turn to ride and let him ride all the time while they walked, but he refused, and he said, neither of you is more capable of walking than I, nor is either of you in need of the reward from God more than I. That was Perfect Muhammad. A huge coalition of 11,000 Islamophobes came to fight the Muslims in the city of Medina at the time when the Muslims' fighting force was only 700 soldiers. So the prophet consulted his companions and asked for ideas. A Persian Muslim suggested a good idea that they dig a trench to prevent the troops from reaching the city of Medina. The prophet professionally drew a map of Medina, decided exactly where the trench should be, divided the working force in 2 groups, each responsible for a task, some to dig, some to transport the dirt, and he put himself with those carrying the dirt so that no one would feel less important than the others, and if, for any reason, someone could not work, he had to take permission from the prophet personally. That way, by the time the troops had reached Medina, there was a trench about 2 miles long, 5 meters deep and 5 meters wide, separating them from the city of Medina and preventing them from attacking it. That was perfect. He asked his companions for ideas on how to call people to the 5 prayers. One said, we can ring a bell. He said, Christians do that. One said, let's blow a horn. He said, Jews do that, and he wanted an idea out of the box. They all went and slept on it. The next day, one of them said, I have seen a dream of a man calling to prayers by saying Allahu Akbar, and the rest of the wording of the event or the call to prayers. The prophet liked the idea and told him, teach those words to be learned, because he has a voice that is more melodious than yours. That was Prophet Muhammad. Imagine yourself a head of state or a busy CEO of a big company, then someone tells you that the street cleaner has died and that his funeral is tomorrow. Would you find time to attend the funeral of the street cleaner, or would you say you were too busy and perhaps just sent some money to his family? Well, there was a poor old woman who used to clean the mosque at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and once when he came back from a journey, he realized that she was absent. He asked about her, and he was told that she had died and had already been buried. While he was away, he blamed his companions and said, "How come you didn't tell me? Take me to her grave." And they took him where they had buried her on the outskirts of the city of Medina, and he went and stood by her grave and prayed for this old poor woman who had no relatives to mourn her. That was perfect moment. A man came asking him, "I am raising an orphan girl, and two men have proposed to her in marriage. One of them is rich, and the other is poor, but she loves him so. What do you think?" The prophet said, "I do not see anything more suitable for two lovers than getting married." So his opinion was that the lovers must get married. That was Prophet Muhammad. He asked his wife Aisha, when she came back from a wedding, if they had had fun. She said, "Yes, we had a lot of fun." He asked, "What did you all sing?" She said, "No, we did not sing." He said, "How come you didn't sing? You Makkans are not in Makkah anymore, and the people of Medina love singing. Why didn't you sing for them Atainakam? And he even suggested a song that could have been suitable for a wedding. As an immigrant, he had no problem adopting some new traditions of the new society in order to integrate, as long as those traditions did not contradict Islam. That was Prophet Muhammad. Once he was speaking to his companions in the mosque, probably about Islamic teachings, then a young companion joined them, and his turban wasn't tied properly. So the Prophet stopped in the middle of his talk and called him and seated him in front of him. Then he tied his turban himself and told him, "This is how you should tie a turban." It is like if a man nowadays stops in the middle of his talk in the mosque and calls someone from the audience and fixes his tie. The young man was so honored that the Prophet had personally tied his turban, and he never untied his turban until he died. That was Prophet Muhammad.